Picture this. You're a world-class chef. You've just been handed the keys to, I don't know, a massive high-end kitchen. Your whole reputation is on the line. You're ready to build your team, the people you trust, your sous chefs, your line cooks. But then the owner walks in.
I think I know where this is going. They have some suggestions.
Worse. So much worse. They say, great news. I've already hired the guy who's going to chop all your onions. Oh, and the person making the sauces.
Right.
And you have to use them, you have to pay them, and if the onions are chopped wrong or the sauce tastes like soap, it is 100% your fault.
That is a kitchen nightmare. That's a recipe for absolute disaster.
Exactly. But this isn't just some hypothetical. This exact scenario plays out on massive construction projects all the time. The person paying the bills, the employer, forces a specific team member onto the main contractor.
It happens way more often than you'd think.
But is that even legal? It feels like you're being completely set up to fail. You're responsible for the entire building, but you didn't even get to pick the people building it.
It is legal, but it's a minefield. What you're describing is the concept of nominated subcontractors.
Yeah.
And while it feels chaotic, there's a very strict rule book for this kind of, let's call it an arranged marriage. We're looking specifically at the FIDIC Yellow Book, the 2017 edition.
Okay, I've got the docs here. Some notes on Clause 4.5 in a template form with the very catchy name, SB17E2.14.
Very catchy.
Sounds like a droid from Star Wars. So, okay, help me understand the why. If I'm an employer, why would I do this?
Yeah.
Why force a subcontractor on the person I hired to manage the whole thing?
It's all about control. That's the short answer. I mean, imagine you want a very specific type of curtain wall glass or a specific brand of a high-speed baggage handling system for an airport.
Yeah.
You don't want the contractor just shopping around for the cheapest version. You want that one, the German one.
Right, I want the fancy German baggage system, not the knockoff. That makes sense.
Precisely. But you don't want to manage that vendor yourself. You want the contractor to do it, so you nominate them. And that, right there, is where the tension starts. The contractor is liable, but they didn't pick the worker.
So let's get into the messy part. How does it happen? Do I just, show up on site one day and there's a stranger in a hard hat?
Not quite. It usually goes down one of two ways. The first is pretty transparent. It's listed in the employer's requirements from day one. So when you bid on the job, you already know, okay, I have to use Bob's Electric for all the wiring.
So I can price that risk in. I know Bob. I know Bob is slow.
And
I'm going to add an extra month to my schedule.
exactly. But the second way, that's where the trouble really starts. It can happen during the project. The engineer, who's the employer's rep, can just issue an instruction under something called Provisional Sums.
So mid-project, they can just drop someone new on me.
Yep. They can come to you and say, for this specific piece of work, you are instructed to hire this company.
That feels incredibly risky. I'm already halfway through building this thing, and suddenly I have a new partner I've never met.
It is, and that's why the contract has a safety valve. If you take one thing away from this deep dive, remember this phrase, you have the right to object.
Okay, good. So I can just say no thanks.
Well, not just no thanks. You need a valid, reasonable objection. And this is critical. You need to move fast. This is where so many contractors get into trouble.
How fast are we talking?
Under Clause 4.5, you have to send a formal notice to the engineer with detailed supporting particulars no later than 14 days after getting the instruction.
Whoa, pause there. 2 weeks.
14 days.
You're telling me if I'm building a skyscraper and the owner throws some random electrical company at me, a company I've never even heard of, I have just 14 days to do a full audit of their financials, check their safety record, and decide if they're competent. That seems impossible.
It is incredibly tight, and that's the trap, because if you just sit on it or you spend 3 weeks casually asking around town about them, you've missed your window.
So silence is acceptance.
Silence is acceptance. After 14 days, you are legally deemed to have accepted them.
So you have to drop everything. What counts as a valid reason? I can't just say, I get a bad vibe from these guys, can I?
Bad vibes will not hold up in court, no. The contract is very, very specific. The first one is pretty straightforward. Competence.
As in, they don't know what they're doing.
Exactly. Or they don't have the resources or the financial strength. If the employer nominates some tiny local firm to install a massive HVAC system in a 50-story tower, you can object. You can say, look, here are their financials. Look at their staff count. They will go bankrupt if they even try to do this job.
It's really protecting the project. At the end of the day, if they go bust, we all lose.
Yes. But the other objections are more technical. They're about liability. This is where we get into the legal weeds. You can object if the subcontractor refuses to indemnify you against their own negligence.
Indemnify me. So pay for their own mistakes.
Yes. Let's go back to your kitchen. If the nominated onion chopper accidentally sets the kitchen on fire, you, the head chef, need to know that he or his insurance is on the hook for the damage.
Right.
If their contract doesn't explicitly say, I will pay for the damage I cause, the main contractor can and should refuse to hire them.
That just seems like common sense.
No.
Why would anyone sign a deal where they aren't responsible for their own screw-ups?
You would be surprised. Some highly specialized vendors, they have a lot of leverage. They might just say, take it or leave it. We don't do indemnities. And in that case, the contractor has to raise their hand and object.
And there was a third reason in the notes, right? Something about back-to-back obligations.
This is a huge one. It's the passing the baton clause. The main contractor has promised the employer a whole list of things: completion dates, quality standards, warranties. So the contractor has to be able to impose those exact same obligations on the subcontractor.
So if I promise the building will be finished by Christmas, I need my subcontractor to promise me they'll be done by, say, Thanksgiving, to give me a buffer.
Exactly. If that subcontractor comes back and says, sorry, I can't commit to that date, or my warranty is only 1 year, not 5, you have a valid objection. You can't be forced to hire someone who makes it impossible to fulfill your own promises.
Okay, so let's play this out. I do my homework. This nominated guy is broke, incompetent, and won't sign the safety rules. I file my objection within the 14 days. Does the employer have to listen?
Generally, yes. It forces a real conversation.
Right.
But there's a loophole for the employer.
Of course there is.
The employer can basically say, I hear your objection. I know they're a risk. I know they won't sign the indemnity. I want them anyway.
And then what?
Then the employer has to sign an indemnification deed. Essentially, the employer says, okay, I will cover you. If this subcontractor causes a problem that they won't pay for, then I will pay for it.
Wow. That's a bold move. That's the restaurant owner saying, I love this onion chopper so much, I will personally pay for every single dinner he ruins.
It happens. But at that point, the risk has shifted back to where it belongs with the employer. As a contractor, that's a win. You've papered your file. You're protected.
So let's assume we get past all that.
Yeah.
We are now legally married to this subcontractor. Now, money. Because the way the cash moves here seems really awkward.
It is the classic construction triangle. The employer pays the contractor, who then pays the subcontractor.
Okay. So I, the contractor, hold the purse strings. That gives me some power, doesn't it? If the nominated guy is acting up, I can just hold his check.
In theory, yes. But you have to remember, this is the employer's chosen one. The employer really cares about this particular subcontractor getting paid, which is why there's a mechanism in Clause 4.5.3 called evidence of payments.
That sounds like I'm being audited.
You basically are. Before the engineer signs off on your next big payment, your interim payment certificate, they can look at you and demand, show me proof that you paid the nominated subcontractor for the work we approved last month.
And if I say, cash flow's a bit tight, I'm getting to it. Then you have a big problem. Unless you have a formal, valid reason to withhold that payment, like their work was terrible and you're in a formal dispute, you have to show you paid them.
And if I can't?
Then the employer can make your life a nightmare. They can initiate what's called a direct payment.
They cut me out of the loop.
Completely.
Yeah.
The employer will just pay the subcontractor directly. Here's the money you are owed. And then, and this is the part that really stings, the engineer deducts that exact amount from your next paycheck.
Ouch. So not only do I look incompetent because the boss had to step in, but I also lose that cash flow immediately.
It's a humiliation, and it's a financial hit. It's the employer saying, we don't trust you with the money, so we're taking over.
Yeah.
It totally undermines your authority on site. That's a great point. If the other subs see the employer paying the nominated guy directly, they're all going to wonder who's actually in charge here.
Right. Control is just an illusion if you don't control the money.
I want to shift gears a little to how these things even begin, because sometimes the employer hasn't just picked a name. Sometimes they've already signed a full-blown deal with a vendor before the contractor is even hired.
Oh, yeah. Very common with long lead items. Think elevators, turbines, specialized facade systems. The employer might order those years in advance.
And then they just hand that contract over to you. I was reading the notes on this, and it brought up two legal terms that sounds almost identical but are apparently worlds apart: assignment and novation.
They are worlds apart, and mixing them up is a classic and very costly rookie mistake.
Okay, I'm going to need the explain like I'm five version here. To me, they both sound like, here, you take this.
Okay, let's use an analogy. Imagine you bought a ticket to a Beyoncé concert, but you can't go. So you sell the ticket to your friend.
Okay, my friend gets to go see the show. They get the benefit.
Exactly. That is assignment. You have assigned the benefit of the contract, the right to enter the venue, to your friend. But let's say the concert gets canceled and there's some complicated refund process. The venue might still look at you, the original buyer, for certain things. You haven't totally erased your name from their system.
So I'm still kind of on the hook in the background.
Potentially, yes. Assignment transfers rights, but it often leaves the original obligations with the original person. And you usually don't need the venue's permission just to hand the ticket over.
Got it. So that's assignment. What on earth is novation?
Novation is like tearing up your original ticket. It's extinguishing the old contract completely and writing a brand new one between the venue and your friend.
So I am completely erased from the picture.
Gone. You have no rights, no obligations, no liability whatsoever. Your friend steps into your shoes completely. But because you're ripping up a legal agreement, everyone involved has to agree. You, your friend, and the venue.
Okay, so why does this distinction matter so much on our construction project?
Because the employer always wants novation. If they signed a huge deal for those turbines, they want to hand that whole deal to the contractor and wash their hands of it completely. They do not want to be in the middle anymore.
They want to novate the contract to me.
They want a clean break. And that brings us right back to that template you mentioned, the SB17 E2.14.
The droid document.
The droid document, it's the bridge. It's the actual form that says, here's how we're going to handle this. And if you look at the drafting notes, it gives the employer 3 very specific options for how to trap the contractor.
How to trap a contractor. I like it. Let's see the menu. What's option 1?
Option 1 is what I'd call the brand snob approach. The employer just says, you must use this specific technology or brand. They haven't negotiated a price. They haven't talked terms. They just point at a catalog and say, get me that one.
So then I, the contractor, have to go out, call them, negotiate a price, and just hope they don't gouge me because they know I have no other choice.
Correct. You carry all the commercial risk. Then you have option 2. The employer has gotten a price proposal, but not the terms and conditions.
So we know it costs $1 million, but we don't know the warranty or the payment schedule or anything important.
Exactly. And then there's option 3. This is the heavy hitter. This is where the employer has already signed a full contract or a letter of intent. The deal is done, and the contractor is told, you must accept a novation of this contract.
Take it over. Warts and all.
Warts and all. And this is where the paperwork gets so dangerous. That template asks for a planned commencement date.
That seems innocent. It's just a date on a calendar.
It is never just a date. Let's say the nominated subcontractor, the one the employer picked, says, I can't start until July. But your main project schedule requires them to start in June. If you sign that document with the July date in it, you've just agreed to delay your own project.
And I can't claim an extension of time for that.
No, because you agreed to it. You accepted the nomination. You signed the novation. That delay is now your delay. You could end up paying penalties to the employer because of the subcontractor they picked.
That is just a wild logic loop. I picked the person who made you late, but you agreed to their schedule, so now you owe me money for being late.
Welcome to construction law. It is all about where the risk sets on paper.
It just highlights why you can't treat these contracts like admin. This isn't just filing papers. It's strategic warfare.
It is. That objection clause, 4.5.1, that is your shield. And if you don't raise that shield within those first 14 days, you are walking into battle with no armor.
So for everyone listening, what is the big takeaway here?
It's all about agency. Look, you can accept a team member you didn't choose. That happens. But you have to make sure you have the authority to manage them and that the contract reflects reality. If you are responsible for the final result, you absolutely must have power over the process.
And check the indemnification clause.
Always. Always check the indemnification clause.
Before we wrap up, I had this one thought that's been nagging me. We talked about objecting if a subcontractor lacks competence.
Right. A valid reason to object.
But competence feels so subjective. On a massive billion-dollar project with cutting-edge tech, a new type of reactor, or a prototype rail system, who actually gets to decide what competent even looks like?
That is the billion-dollar question, isn't it?
Is it the employer with the vision and the checkbook? Or is it the contractor, the one who actually has to pour the concrete and takes all the risk if it fails? Because if they disagree on what competent means, that 14-day window becomes a real battleground.
And usually the person holding the pen on that objection notice is the one who decides the fate of the project. If you don't write it down, your opinion just doesn't exist.
Something to think about. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive.
See you next time.
If you're interested in the templates, please visit our shop. The link is in the description.
Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and see next time.